Despite weakness in the precious metals, the base metals have continued to outperform. Copper is still near its all-time high and showing continued strength. We're going to find out why and whether or not this strength is indicative of further strength in the economy, as copper has closely mirrored not just economic growth, it's called Dr. Copper in the past, but also it's mirrored the strength of the stock market. Welcome back, Enrico Gay, founder and CEO of Algo Grande Copper. Enrico, good to see you again.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you as well.
We're existing in interesting times.
We're existing in interesting times. We're envious that you are not at the office right now, but nonetheless, you're able to give us some really good insights. Last time, we can check out our last interviews down below where we talked about how strategically important copper is to not just electrification, but the entire build out of the AI infrastructure. And copper's price has broadly reflected that. Copper is now still near all-time highs, like I said in the introduction, despite gold falling. Now, I've read news that Chile, the largest copper producer in the world, has recently seen some disruptions in production that may have contributed to the fact that copper is up despite the fact that the NASDAQ is down. The NASDAQ and the copper price have followed each other very closely in the last couple of months. Recently, in the last week, they diverged. Copper still stayed strong while the NASDAQ fell. Can you comment on whether or not copper is seeing the result of supply chain disruptions or just production disruptions, or if there's something more fundamental at play here?
Man, I'm not an economist, but there are a lot of variables at play. Obviously, it's been many years. Analysts, economists have been, and mining entrepreneurs have been ringing the bell and red flagging the fact that the copper supply demand imbalance is very real. And Chile is the number one producer of copper. So any hiccups over there are going to affect the market, of course. A large portion of the copper supply that we're looking at in the future is located in pretty remote places, high elevation, very deep deposits in the Andes. And these are projects that are, subject to hiccups. And so, yeah, I think it makes sense that copper hasn't corrected. It is defying the sort of the gravity that we're seeing on the other metals. I'm not surprised.
For a CEO of an explorer, how does the elevated price of copper impact operations? In other words, are you expediting drilling? And we'll be talking about your recent drilling campaign in just a minute, but are you, generally speaking, moving things ahead at a faster pace? And if, let's say, copper were $5 a pound instead of $6?
Yeah. So for us, the strategy, we're a young company. We listed in December of 2025, and the strategy for us hasn't changed. The thesis for why we created this company hasn't changed. It was all built on the supply demand copper dynamics. We believed, myself and Joao Roca, the VP of exploration, my business partner who's a geologist, we believed that copper was going to be a metal that was going to be in a bull market for a longer period of time and much more stable than some of the other metals and commodities out there. So we wanted to build a business around it. And so, but we're tackling everything with that mindset that, copper is in a bull market. So this is not the time to take it easy and drill a little bit. We're pushing, pedal to the metal. The money we raise goes into the ground. We have an aggressive drill program, an exploration drill program that's 8,000 meters. We're going to be drilling. So far, we'll have drilled 10,000 meters this year, and we will continue to push forward.
Okay.
And hopefully drill a lot more. So
let's, I think this is a good time to recap the project itself, the Adelita project and the district in which it's operating, Sonora, Mexico. Let's tell us about Sonora, Mexico, and why you're operating there, what makes that jurisdiction unique, and then we can get into the details and the particulars of the project itself.
Sonora, Mexico is the number one copper producing state of Mexico. In Sonora, you have the Caridad and Buenavista mines. These are some of the largest copper mines in the world. Um, so Sonora is a very important place for copper. It is also one of the most important jurisdictions in Mexico for mining in general. You have Agnico Eagle, Grupo Mexico, Heliostar. You have a number of large players here, and there's, Mexico usually is more associated with gold and silver, but Sonora has a lot of copper. Um, the state of Sonora is a mining-friendly jurisdiction. These are people that understand mining very well, and unlike the other regions in Mexico, where you may have some resistance to mining, in Sonora and in northern Mexico in general, as if you can make a generalization, people understand mining and are friendly to mining. Additionally, the infrastructure is phenomenal.
Okay, I think this is a pretty good time to recap the project itself. I think people can go back and check out our first interview where your VP Exploration Joao was attending as well. But we linked down below, by the way. That was a couple months ago. But since you're here, let's get a recap of the company's project, the size and scope of the project. But first, let's talk about Sonora, Mexico, in which the project resides and operates in. What is special about Sonora? It's, according to what I've read, the copper capital of Mexico. But broadly, why are you in Mexico? Why aren't you in Chile or Peru?
Yes, Sonora is the copper capital of Mexico. It's a state that produces basically over 90% of the copper concentrate that comes out of the country, and it's the home of some of the largest copper mines. Um, why aren't we in Chile or Peru? Well, I think that comes down to also the circumstances and the context. This deal was brought to us by Dr. Peter McGaw. He was the founder of Mag Silver, a world-renowned geologist. And when you have that technical expertise and deep understanding of the country, and you're able to to essentially leverage that knowledge that Peter McGaw is bringing to us, plus you have a very high quality project, that just makes it, the opportunity cost there to look at other projects in other parts of the world. It's a pretty difficult gap sort of to justify. So really good project, really good technical team that's been here for 40, 50 years. And that's why we're there. But Sonora is the number one producing state in Mexico for copper. It's also one of the most mining friendly jurisdictions probably out there. Just to give you context, exploration permits, 30 days turnaround for drill permits. The people down there understand mining. There's a culture around mining, and unlike many other different parts of the world where mining is seen as something bad, in Sonora people are very, very friendly to it, and that's the situation we have on the ground. So infrastructure is great. You have a highway that runs along the state. You have a deep sea water port where all the copper concentrate makes its way to the smelters in Asia. China and Japan are the number one buyers of Sonoran copper concentrate. And you're just around many mines. Like next door to us is the Alamo Dorado mine, which is owned by Pan American Silver, that produced 70 million ounces of silver. So, it's, in the words of Peter McGaw, if the infrastructure was any better, you'd have to move it out of the way. I love that quote, but it's true.
Okay, the size and scale of the deposit so far, what have you inferred?
So we don't have a mineral resource estimate on this project yet. It's still purely early stage exploration. There was about 7,000 meters worth of drilling historically here. And why did we, why did we get involved? What did we find that caught our attention? Very significant intervals, up to 100 meters, over 1% copper. Very, very high quality gold and silver credits associated with that copper in the skarn. So you're getting, on average, half a gram per ton gold and anywhere between 50 to 200 grams per ton silver. that's really, really good. And when you get a copper, when you have copper above 1%, and then you have those silver and gold credits, whenever you're in the Skarn mineralization, uh, to date, including our own holes, you're getting above 1.5% copper equivalent, 1.8% copper equivalent. So really, really quality in terms of grade and metallurgy. We know the recovery based on preliminary studies roughly 85% or higher for gold, for copper and silver, and a little bit lower for gold because it is associated with magnetite. But really top-notch grades in the Skarn. And when it comes to scale, we believe that the project is just the tip of the iceberg. Is has been basically what we're seeing. Um, we are drilling 8,000 meters now, when historically there has only been 7,000 meters, plus the 2,000 meters we drilled at the beginning of the year. So in the first 6 months of owning this project, we'll have drilled more than ever historically. Uh, the current discovery is in a 300-meter zone. We're drilling a 2.5-kilometer corridor, so we can expand this strike and the amount of mineralization discovered by, you do the multiples there, but it's a significant potential expansion, and that's kind of where we are. We need to now prove the scale, but already in our phase one drill program that we put out results in at the beginning of the year in Q1, we actually discovered three new high-grade Skarn lenses, Skarn horizons, that were not previously understood. Previous project owners never drilled this project with orientated core, and that's a big no-no when you're dealing with Skarns because they're tricky to delineate. They have odd shapes and geometries. So not knowing where that formation is pointing to, the rock formation, is not going to work in your favor. You need to understand the geometry of these systems. Drilling with orientated core is great for that. And then there was never a detailed magnetic study done over this limestone package that hosts the Skarn. And even though you have a magnetite-rich Skarn, so magnetite is going to show up really nicely on the mag. And so those are the things we did to identify this 2.5-kilometer prospective corridor. But beyond that, beyond the central zone, we also have a Skarn that's 3 kilometers away from the central Cerro Grande zone, and that Skarn outcrops for 300 meters. It was never drilled. We took outcrop samples here. They came back north of 1% copper directly from the outcrop, and 1 gram around 1 gram per ton gold. And so we're drilling there too. So really, we're looking at what we believe is going to be a satellite system of Skarns. And then you have porphyry intrusions at depth, and then you have epithermal targets as well, like Las Trancas, which is it's an old adit we'll be drilling right on top of the adit. And there you see surface samples. One came back 1,500 grams per ton silver. So this license is pretty incredible. And we believe it's a complex system. It's a large scale system that has received very little love. Again, David, it's important for you to understand if this project was in the US or Canada, it would already have 50,000 meters worth of drilling on it. That's ultimately what that means. So Mexico still has some pretty amazing opportunities. That's how we feel about it.
That makes me wonder, this is strategically important for North America because right at the border of Arizona, investors and governments alike have access to one of the world's richest veins for critical minerals, not just for copper, but also molybdenum, gold. You mentioned graphite, silver, some lithium as well. I was just reading.
Yeah.
Why isn't there more drilling? I mean, shouldn't the U.S. government, and to some extent the Canadian government as well, look into this and invest a lot of money into this region?
Well, there has been a lot of exploration in northern Mexico specifically. But northern Mexico has had a lot of development. But based on my conversations with top-notch geologists, it's been very surface level. And it's been less sophisticated than what you perhaps would see happening in the Andes, where they're drilling directionally down to 2,000 meters and discovering these big porphyries over there. So I would say northern Mexico, it's not that it hasn't gotten attention, it's just that it hasn't been maybe the most sophisticated sort of big picture geology, if that makes sense. But I agree with you 100% when it comes to the whole US independence and them, securing their own critical metal supply. It makes a lot of sense to near shore these metals across the border in Mexico, right? And we had something called NAFTA. I don't know what happened to it, but
Yeah.
it makes sense. But then at the end of the day, you also, not that I'm a macro guy and I'm not, but you look at who actually owns the smelters and the refineries that can produce the final product. And there is just not the capacity in the US. There's not we don't have that, right?
That's
So
right.
that's why the concentrate makes its way to China and Japan. And then we buy the copper back. That's just the free market. That's just capitalism. Right now, that's the way it goes. They'll have to invest in infrastructure, and then they can start worrying about securing the metals.
I wonder if we can see relations between the US and Mexico changing as it's more apparent that districts like Sonora are becoming strategically important for national security. What do you think?
I think that would be very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be wise, for Mexico, the US and Canada to go back and really take another hard look at their partnership, improving it. Again, I'm not a politician, but I think that would make sense given, the context, geopolitics at play right now.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put up the recent drill result one more time, and we can go over it and ask some
Actually,
forward-looking questions now.
If you go back, we put this out today. It just announces that the second drill rig has arrived and it's starting our hole number 3 of the phase 2 drill program. But if you go back one, you'll see right below there. Yeah, that's an update on hole number 2.
Yeah.
Hole number 2 started producing. We entered Skarn high grade mineralization at 100 meters before what we were expecting. And so far, as per this news release, we see about 28 meters of copper mineralization in the Skarn. And if you go a little bit down, you'll see this beautiful photo where there's visible chalcocite on that core. If you scroll a little bit up, I don't think I can see it. Yeah, right there, the core, right? So that's visible chalcocite. If you point the XRF gun on those chalcocite nuggets, they're about 50% copper. So this is going to be a high grade interval, but the hole is still ongoing. It's going down to 700 meters. What we reported here is, I believe, up to just about shy of 200 meters. So we reported the mineralization we hit between 140 and I believe 170, 180. But the hole is ongoing. It's going down all the way to 700 meters. And below 400 meters, nobody has ever drilled vertical depth over 400 meters. And we're targeting the resistivity at depth, which could be the mineralized porphyry. That's a resistivity we see below the skarn. Not to get too technical, but skarns are created through a hydrothermal process over millions and millions of years. These gases and liquids travel up from an intrusion of depth, which we can call the porphyry, and they travel up. And when they meet limestone and sedimentary rock, they can actually drop these metals into those sedimentary rocks and create skarns. Skarn is just another word for a dirty rock. It's a sedimentary rock that's been constantly intruded by hydrothermal through a hydrothermal process and has, been essentially building up the grade. That's why skarns are typically high grade systems. But the intrusions that create skarns and porphyries are related. Those are also interesting. They can tell you a lot about the system. And again, looking at this license, not just chasing one target, but trying to understand the whole system that is powering all the mineralization we see at surface and powering the skarn. And Peter McGaw is a big proponent of CRD, carbon replacement deposit models. which essentially just show you the entire district. What does it look like underground, right? You have an intrusion, you have a porphyry, you have a skarn, you have veins that create epithermal deposits that have gold and silver. Those are all things that we see here at Adelita, right? Remember, we're next door to a mine that produced 70 million ounces of silver. That was an epithermal deposit. Where did those veins come from? Right? They're associated to deep intrusions, potentially a porphyry, and it could be on our license or it could be around us. So those are the big questions that we're trying to answer, as well as obviously creating shareholder value and hitting high grade mineralization in the Skarn, which is what people want to see in the short term.
For those of us who aren't geologists, when we get drill results like this, what are some of the indicators that the project is moving in the right direction?
Well, this news release that you just pulled up, first and foremost, it's not assays. This is what we're seeing visually in the core. But it definitely shows that
well,
the
put it
core,
this way: what kind of result would you like to see? Let's say you, get some samples back. Ideally, what would you like to see? Yes.
Well, this needs to go to the assays, to ALS, and anytime you have an interval that's high grade, north of 1% copper, and it's anything over. This is what a very smart geologist from a major told me. Anytime you have if you have 2% copper on a 5-meter interval, that's economic. In other words, that can be mined. So anytime you have an interval that's larger than 5 meters at 1% copper, if it's 5 meters, it needs to be 10 meters if it's a 1% copper, right? To carry through with his example. But anytime you have an interval that's 5-10 meters and above, and it's 1% of copper or higher, and it has also gold and silver, that's what we're looking for, right? We just want that type of a result back from ALS. We're pretty confident we're going to be well exceeding that result in this hole. But this won't be the best hole we ever drill, and it won't be the worst drill we ever drill. So I think investors need to pay attention to the results in the micro. Understanding that the drill program is going well. What happened with this hole? What happened with that hole? But also they need to focus on the bigger picture. What is this? What are these results telling us about the overall geology here? So it's, in other words, it's about intervals and grades, but also about potential indications to within that hole relating to a porphyry intrusion at depth, and leads that can point to a bigger system.
Looking ahead, do we have any other drill programs underway?
This drill program is now it's about 10% in. So we're really focused on this drill program, phase 2, 8,000 meters. And we believe this is going to be a successful drill program, which means we'll be following it up with a phase 3. Again, this phase 2 is very focused on the Skarn and expanding on the current discovery within the Skarn system, but the future drill programs will also focus on the porphyry component. We have a porphyry target called Mesquital, which is definitely something we're planning to follow up on and do some drilling over there. And then if you have success in Las Trancas, which is the epithermal target, we're also drilling. And if we have success at that other Skarn we're drilling 3 kilometers away, we'll be following up all of that with a phase 3 drill program. So this is purely our first larger scale exploration program, and where we have success, where we see the mineralization comes back very positive and that we can see the scale, we were going to follow up with a round 3.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Enrico. Tell us where we can find more information about your company.
You can find more information about our company on our website. It's www.algo-grande.com.
Okay. We'll put the link down below, so please do follow Algo Grande Copper there and do your due diligence and look over the financials. Thank you very much, Enrico. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe.